Tonight, we're going to slowly wander through the foggy streets of Victorian London, not the grand London of royal palaces and glittering ballrooms, but the quieter one, the colder one, the London that existed beneath rainwater reflecting dim gas lamps, behind tavern doors glowing softly late at night, inside narrow streets where carriage wheels echoed over wet cobblestones while most of the city slept. Maybe you're listening tonight from a quiet bedroom, a rainy apartment, a late-night train, or somewhere warm beneath blankets, while distant traffic hums softly outside your window. I always love reading where people are listening from. There's something strangely comforting about imagining thousands of people quietly awake around the world at the same time, listening beside lamps, rain, or sleeping cities glowing faintly beyond dark windows. And tonight, there's no complicated story to follow, no loud mystery, no dramatic twists, only a slow wandering through another world, another life, another cold Victorian night beneath candlelight and rain. Tonight, you wake up inside a Victorian brothel, London, somewhere in the late 1800s. Outside, rain taps softly against the windows, while distant carriage wheels move through narrow streets below. The room is dimly lit by a small oil lamp beside the bed, casting warm amber light against faded wallpaper and dark wooden furniture worn gently with age. The fire downstairs has almost gone out. The building smells faintly of smoke, perfume, wet wool, cheap soap, and rain drifting in each time the front door opens below. And perhaps the first thing you would notice is not glamour, not seduction, not scandal, but exhaustion. Victorian London was enormous, loud, crowded, unequal. During the 1800s, thousands of women entered prostitution for reasons far more ordinary and heartbreaking than modern stories often suggest. Poverty, loneliness, widowhood, factory wages too low to survive on, no family, no inheritance, no protection. And perhaps one of the strangest things about history is how often survival itself quietly shapes human lives, making grand decisions of the day. Outside, the city continues moving through rain and water slides slowly down the glass while fog thickens beyond the street below. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle echoes faintly through the sleeping city before disappearing again into darkness. And downstairs, someone begins laughing softly beside the fire. Victorian brothels were often strangely social places too. Women lived together, worked together, ate together, protected one another when they could, and shared long, repetitive nights beneath the same candlelit ceilings. There must have been moments of ordinary comfort too. Tea beside fireplaces, quiet conversations after midnight, borrowed dresses hanging beside beds, shared gossip during rainy afternoons while the city outside disappeared beneath fog. History often focuses so intensely on suffering that people forget ordinary moments of warmth still existed too. Even difficult lives contain small rituals of comfort. A hot drink, music drifting softly through another room, a warm fire during winter, the relief of someone understanding your loneliness without explanation, shared gossip during rainy afternoons while the city outside disappeared beneath fog. History often focuses so intensely on suffering that people forget ordinary moments of warmth still existed too. Even difficult lives contain small rituals of comfort. A hot drink, music drifting softly through another room, a warm fire during winter, the relief of someone understanding your loneliness without explanation. Tonight, imagine standing beside the upstairs window now. Tonight, imagine standing beside the upstairs window now. Outside, Victorian London glows softly through rain and gaslight. The streets below shimmer gold beneath reflections, while horse carriages move slowly through foggy darkness. Somewhere farther away, factories continue burning through the night, while thousands of windows glow faintly across the endless city. And perhaps this is what made Victorian London feel emotionally overwhelming to so many people. The size of it, the anonymity, the strange loneliness of existing among millions of strangers. Modern people often imagine loneliness as isolation, but cities create another kind entirely. The feeling of being surrounded constantly by human lives you will never fully know. Perhaps the women working in these houses understood that feeling deeply. People arrived, left, disappeared forever, night after night, and eventually maybe conversations began blending together into something distant and dreamlike. The human mind protects itself sometimes by turning repetition into emotional numbness. Even now, the strange loneliness of existing among millions of strangers. Modern people often imagine loneliness as isolation, but cities create another kind entirely. The feeling of being surrounded constantly by human lives you will never fully know. Perhaps the women working in these houses understood that feeling deeply. People arrived, left, disappeared forever, night after night, and eventually the conversations began blending together into something distant and dreamlike. The human mind protects itself sometimes by turning repetition into emotional numbness. And even now, people working exhausting jobs often describe never forgetting the feeling long after long nights. Time moves, days repeat, small comforts become everything. Tonight, the fire downstairs crackles softly again and the rain continues falling against the Victorian rooftops outside. And slowly, the entire city begins settling deeper into silence beneath fog, gaslight, and the endless soft rhythm of rain. As the night stretches further into morning, the brothel grows quieter. One by one, footsteps fade along the hallways downstairs. Doors close softly. The piano stops playing. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, someone carefully stirs dying fireplace embers back to life before the sound disappears again into silence. Outside, London remains awake. That is one of the strangest things about old cities to imagine. No matter how late the hour became, Victorian London never fully slept. Somewhere beyond the foggy windows, bakers were already preparing bread before dawn. Dock workers moved through the freezing riverfront beneath lantern light. Newspaper boys slept curled beneath blankets in narrow alleyways, while factory smoke drifted endlessly upward into the dark sky. And perhaps that endless movement made the quieter moments feel even lonelier somehow. Tonight, you sit beside the upstairs window watching rain slide slowly down the glass. The room behind you glows softly amber beneath oil lamplight. Shadows move gently against faded wallpaper while the fire downstairs sends faint warmth upward through the old building. A brush rests forgotten beside the mirror. A teacup cools slowly near the edge of the bedside table. And outside, the city feels impossibly enormous. Victorian London was one of the largest cities on earth during the 19th century. Millions of people crowded together beneath smoke, fog, poverty, wealth, horse traffic, factories, gas lamps, and endless noise. For many young women arriving from smaller villages or towns, the city must have felt overwhelming beyond description. Some came searching for work. Some followed husbands or lovers. Some simply had nowhere else left to go. And perhaps one of the saddest realities of Victorian life was how fragile security could become for women without money or family support. A single illness, a death, losing employment, or even social scandal could completely alter the direction of someone's life almost overnight. History often looks dramatic from far away, but up close, it usually unfolds through ordinary desperation. Tonight, rainwater gathers slowly along the cobblestones outside, while fog curls softly around the gas lamps lining the narrow street below. A carriage passes through the darkness, wheels hissing quietly through wet mud before fading into the distance again. And for a moment, everything feels strangely peaceful. That contradiction appears often in history. Beautiful nights existing beside difficult lives. Warm candlelight beside loneliness. Soft music drifting through buildings filled with exhaustion. Perhaps human beings have always created comfort most desperately during hard periods because small beauty becomes emotionally important when life feels uncertain. Even now, people still light candles during stressful nights, still make tea, still play soft music while rain taps against windows, still search instinctively for warmth and atmosphere when the world feels emotionally heavy. Or perhaps that instinct has existed for centuries longer than people realize. Downstairs, faint conversation begins again near the fire. Women living inside these houses were often very young, much younger than modern people sometimes imagine. Many entered prostitution rest drying beside the hearth. Someone nearby quietly replays torn fabric beneath candlelight, while another woman stares silently into the flames lost in thought. Outside, rain continues moving softly through the sleeping city, while fog presses gently against the windows. And maybe conversations during those late hours became more honest. People often become emotionally softer at night, more reflective, more vulnerable. Even now, late-night conversations tend to feel strangely intimate compared to daytime ones. The brain slows down, defenses lower, silence stretches differently after midnight. Perhaps that was true inside Victorian brothels too. Maybe people quietly admitted fears they ignored during daylight. Dreams of leaving London, missing family, wanting safety. Wanting ordinary lives, wanting rest. There's something deeply human about that longing for rest throughout history. Not only physical rest, but emotional rest too. The desire to stop worrying for a little while, to feel safe, to belong somewhere warm while rain falls outside. And perhaps that is why cozy imagery affects people so deeply even now. Fireplaces, lamps, rain against windows, glowing city lights. All of it touches something ancient inside the nervous system. Warmth against uncertainty, shelter against darkness. Tonight, the fire burns lower again downstairs. The city outside slowly softens toward early morning while fog drifts heavily through the narrow London streets. Somewhere far away, church bells echo faintly through the rain before fading into silence once more. And inside the brothel, someone finally blows out the last candle before sleep. By early morning, the rain has almost stopped. Only a soft dripping remains outside the windows now, water falling steadily from rooftops onto the narrow street below, while pale grey light slowly begins spreading through the fog above London. The gas lamps still glow faintly against the wet cobblestones, though their warmth already feels weaker beneath approaching dawn. And inside the brothel, everything feels quieter than before. Not peaceful exactly, but tired. Deeply tired in the way old buildings sometimes seem tired after long nights. The air smells faintly of extinguished candles, fireplace smoke, damp wool coats drying near the hearth, and yesterday's perfume lingering softly through the halls upstairs. Perhaps one of the strangest things about Victorian London was how many people existed almost entirely at night. Not just women in brothels, but factory workers finishing overnight shifts, street sweepers clearing mud before sunrise, bakery workers beginning their day while most of the city still slept, night watchmen carrying lanterns through foggy streets, cab drivers half asleep atop carriages beneath freezing rain. An entire hidden world existed after midnight, and maybe that is part of why nighttime still feels emotionally different now. Humans have always associated late hours with intimacy, reflection, loneliness, secrecy, and vulnerability. The city changes after dark. People soften after dark. Even now, thoughts tend to feel heavier beside dim lamps and quiet streets than they do beneath daylight and noise. Tonight, or perhaps this early Victorian morning now, we walk quietly downstairs while the house settles into exhausted silence around you. The fireplace still glows softly in the sitting room. Ash crackles faintly beneath fading embers, while weak morning light leaks through fog-covered windows onto worn carpets and dark wooden furniture. A teacup sits abandoned near the hearth from hours earlier. Someone forgot gloves beside the staircase. Tiny, ordinary details. History lives inside details like that, not only in famous events or dramatic moments, but in forgotten objects people touched briefly before moving on with their lives. A half-finished cup of tea, wet boots drying beside the fire, rainwater soaking the edge of someone's coat after a long carriage ride home. Sometimes the past feels most emotional when imagined through those small human traces, rather than through grand historical narratives. And perhaps that's especially true for people history often overlooked. Victorian society judged prostitution harshly in public, while simultaneously depending upon it privately. Many wealthy men visited brothels while the women themselves carried enormous social stigma, almost impossible to escape afterward. There's something painfully human about that contradiction. Societies throughout history often create impossible conditions and then blame vulnerable people for surviving inside them. Even now, people still struggle to separate morality from survival. Outside, a milk cart rattles slowly through the street while fog hangs low between buildings. Somewhere nearby, shopkeepers begin opening shutters for the morning. London slowly wakes again beneath smoke, rainwater, and pale winter skies. And inside the house, some of them are now finally sleeping. The Victorian sleep schedules were often fragmented and irregular for people working nights. Heavy curtains remain drawn upstairs, while the rest of the city begins another day beyond the windows. A strange emotional disconnection of living opposite regular routines leads to felt isolating sometimes. Modern people still experience this too. Night workers often describe feeling separated from ordinary life somehow, existing slightly outside the rhythms everyone else seems to follow naturally. Perhaps loneliness grows more easily when the public operates in reverse from the rest of society. And Victorian London could already feel deeply lonely even during daylight. The city was crowded beyond imagination, yet many people still moved anonymously through it every day. Endless strangers passed one another beneath smoke and rain without ever truly seeing each other. Maybe that's why warm interiors mattered so much emotionally then. Fireplaces, tea, conversation, music drifting softly through another room. Humans instinctively create little islands of comfort against enormous uncertain worlds. Tonight, or perhaps this rainy London morning, the woman beside the fireplace finally closes her eyes for a moment after staying awake through most of the night. Her hands rest near fading warmth while rainwater continues dripping softly outside, and for a brief second, everything feels still. No customers, no noise, no expectations, only quiet firelight beneath a gray Victorian sky. There's something strangely emotional about imagining how many forgotten lives passed through old cities unnoticed. People loved, worried, got tired, laughed quietly with friends, stared out rainy windows while thinking about the future, wondered whether life would ever become easier. Ordinary emotional lives, completely invisible now except through imagination. And perhaps that's why history can feel comforting late at night. It reminds people that humans across centuries were never as emotionally distant as they first appear. They searched for warmth too, for connection, for safety, for rest. Just like people still do now while sitting awake beside rain and glowing screens long after midnight. Outside the window, London continues waking slowly beneath fog while the last firelight flickers softly against the walls of the quiet sleeping house. Later that evening, the rain returns again, not violently, just softly. a thin, endless drizzle moving across rooftops and chimneys, while Victorian London slowly disappears once more beneath fog and gaslight. Water glows gold beneath the street lamps outside, reflecting carriage wheels and distant footsteps across the wet cobblestones below. And somehow, the city feels gently at night. That may sound strange considering how difficult Victorian London could be, but perhaps darkness softened things. Daylight revealed smoke, overcrowding, poverty, exhaustion. Night transformed the city into something quieter and more dreamlike. Through fog, music drifted softly from taverns, fireplaces flickered behind curtains, horse carriages moved slowly through rain like shadows disappearing into mist. Even now, people still romanticize in cities at night because nighttime hides harsh edges and leaves on the atmosphere behind. Tonight, inside the brothel, preparations begin again for another evening. Candles are lit downstairs one by one. Someone sweeps near the entrance while another woman quietly fixes loose ribbon on her dress beside the mirror upstairs. The fire crackles softly in the sitting room, while rain taps steadily against the windows. And perhaps what feels most haunting is how routine everything has become. Humans adapt incredibly quickly. Even emotionally difficult environments eventually become ordinary through repetition. A brain cannot survive in constant emotional intensity forever, so eventually routines form around almost anything. Tea before evening begins, fixing hair beside candlelight, quiet conversations near the fire before visitors arrive. Tiny rituals repeated night after night until they feel strangely comforting despite everything surrounding them. Maybe that's one of the most human things in the world, the ability to create normality inside uncertainty. Outside, the streets grow busy as darkness deepens. Men in dark coats move beneath umbrellas through the rain, while tavern doors open briefly onto warm bursts of firelight and piano music before closing again against the cold. Victorian nightlife is labeled strangely low class. Wealthy gentlemen attended theaters and clubs illuminated by chandeliers, while only a few streets away people slept beneath bridges or wandered the city searching desperately for food, warmth, or work. London had enormous luxury and enormous suffering side by side constantly, and perhaps that emotional contrast gave the city its strange atmosphere. Beauty existing beside sadness, warmth beside loneliness, comfort beside surviving. Tonight, we sit quietly downstairs for a while, listening to rain and conversation blending softly together. The moon glows amber beneath candlelight. Shadows flicker gently against the walls while fog presses faintly against the windows outside. Someone laughs near the piano. Another woman warms cool hands beside the fireplace after briefly stepping outdoors into the rain. And for a moment, it almost feels peaceful. History often becomes emotionally complicated when viewed closely enough. Even inside places associated with hardship, ordinary moments of comfort still existed. Friendships, inside jokes, music, shared meals after long nights. The relief of not feeling alone for a little while. Perhaps modern people sometimes struggle with this idea because history is often simplified into categories: tragic or beautiful, cruel or romantic. But real human lives were always mixtures of all those things at once. A woman might feel exhausted and comforted in the same evening, lonely and connected, hopeful and trapped. Human emotions rarely stay simple for long. The rain outside grows heavier now. Water streams steadily along the street, while carriage lanterns blur softly through fog beyond the glass. Somewhere farther away, a train whistle echoes faintly through the sleeping city before fading into the darkness. And maybe one of the strangest things about Victorian brothels is how much waiting filled the nights. Waiting between visitors, waiting beside windows, waiting for conversations to end downstairs, waiting for morning. Humans spend enormous portions of life waiting, even now, waiting for messages, for love, for change, for money, for loneliness to pass. Perhaps waiting itself becomes emotionally exhausting after enough years. Tonight, one of the women upstairs stands quietly near the window, watching rain slide down the glass while London glows dimly below. Somewhere across the city, thousands of other people are awake too beneath lamps and storm clouds. Factory workers, night watchmen, widows unable to sleep, students reading beside candles, men stumbling home through fog after too much whiskey, children curled beneath blankets listening to storms against rooftops. And somehow, all those separate lives overlap invisibly inside the same sleeping city. There's something deeply comforting about that thought late at night. The realization that even loneliness has always been shared quietly by millions of people throughout history. Outside, the fog thickens again around the gas lamps. Inside the brothel, the fire burns warmer while soft piano music drifts faintly through the building once more. And for another long, rainy Victorian night, the city continues breathing softly beyond the windows. And slowly, the night begins fading once more. Beyond the rain-covered windows, Victorian London softens beneath pale early morning fog, while the final gas lamps continue glowing faintly against wet cobblestone streets. The city is quieter now. Carriages pass less frequently. Tavern doors close one by one. Somewhere far away, church bells drift softly through the mist before disappearing again into the cold gray sky. Inside the brothel, most of the candles have burned low. The fire downstairs crackles gently beneath fading embers, while tired footsteps disappear one final time along the upper hallways. A teacup remains forgotten beside the fireplace. Rainwater still taps softly against the glass, and perhaps this is where history feels most emotional late at night. Not inside grand events, not inside famous names, but inside quiet, forgotten moments no one recorded. A woman staring silently out a rainy Victorian window. Someone warming cold hands beside a fire after midnight. Soft piano music drifting through another room while London sleeps outside beneath fog and lantern light. Tiny human moments, completely ordinary at the time, and yet somehow still emotionally recognizable even now, because beneath all the old architecture, candlelight, horse carriages, and foggy streets, people have always remained surprisingly similar to one another. They searched for comfort, for warmth, for connection, for safety during uncertain nights. Even now, people still stay awake replaying conversations beside dim bedroom lamps. Still watch rain against windows while feeling lonely. Still search for little rituals that make difficult days softer somehow. Tea, music, blankets, warm lights in dark rooms. Humans have always created small islands of comfort against enormous, uncertain worlds. And perhaps that's why old cities feel strangely nostalgic sometimes, even to people who never lived there. Because history reminds us that countless ordinary people once sat beneath the same rain, the same winter skies, the same late-night thoughts, quietly wondering whether life might someday feel gentler. Outside, morning slowly begins waking the city, Fog drifts softly between rooftops, while shopkeepers prepare for another long Victorian day beyond the glowing windows below. Somewhere along the river, workers begin moving through the cold. Somewhere else, someone finally falls asleep after staying awake all night beside candlelight and rain. And inside the quiet brothel, the last firelight flickers softly against the walls before fading slowly into dawn. So tonight, or perhaps early this morning now, wherever you're listening from, a quiet apartment, a rainy city, a bedroom glowing softly beside the dark, I hope this little journey through Victorian London brought you some comfort. There's something strangely peaceful about remembering that human beings across every century have searched gently for warmth and rest during long, difficult nights, and somehow they always will. So dim the lights a little more. Get comfortable. Listen to the rain for a moment, and let the old city slowly disappear into fog once again, while the rest of the world quietly falls asleep.